Hello all and welcome, and I am the MGTOW philosopher, and in this video I would like to talk about the allegation that MGTOW is a cult, and whether or not it actually is. Now first of all, we have to define our terms and establish what exactly a cult is. And since I'm not some crazy leftist who believes that words can mean whatever the hell I want them to mean, and I believe in using correct, objectively true definitions, let's look at the dictionary definition, shall we? And first off, let's start with the Merriam-Webster definition. Number 1, formal religious veneration, meaning worship. 2, a system of religious beliefs and ritual. Number 3, a religion regarded as unorthodox or spurious. Number 4, a system for the cure of disease based on dogma set forth by its promulgator health cult. Number 5, great devotion to a person, idea, object, movement, or work, such as film or book. And now let's look at the Cambridge definition so as to make sure we have some balance. Number 1, a religious group often living together whose beliefs are considered extreme or strange by many people. Number 2, a particular system of religious belief. All right, so what we can see here is that cults take some very easily recognizable forms. One being that the people who follow a religion are cultists of a sort, with the more extreme cultists tending to live together. 2, they tend to follow dogma, meaning a set of pre-established beliefs that are 100% absolutely right because some authority said so, not because of evidence. 3, worship of some kind, generally taking the form of worship focused around an actual deity or a deity in the form of a person. Now let's look at the definition of dogma, as understanding its meaning is important to the discussion. Number 1, something held as an established opinion, especially a definite authoritative tenet, a code of tenets, essentially pedagogical dogma. A point of view or tenet put forth as authoritative without adequate grounds. A doctrine or body of doctrines concerning faith or morals formally stated and authoritatively proclaimed by a church. So, dogma is a key requirement for any cult. Basically, beliefs accepted not because they've been proven to be objectively true, but because they've been proven to be subjectively true, because they match up with someone's feelings, meaning they ring true, they sound right. They're given from an authority of some kind, hence they're 100% true all the time, no matter what. These are beliefs you can trust. These are beliefs you can live your life by. No need to think. Just do what the dogma says to do and your life will be great. Dogma, 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 meaning dogmatic, unthinking, parroting of platitudes and talking points. A doctrine established to provide everything you need to inform you on the world without the need for objective thought as to what is and is not right and good in this world. All the answers are already provided for you. No need to think for yourself or ask questions. And if you do ask questions, you risk being excommunicated for questioning the almighty word of God, the ultimate authority, or the almighty authority of the collective who have decided what is right and what is not, or the almighty authority of the dictator who is all too often worshipped like a god. Does that sound like MGTOW to you? The answer is no, of course not. And while it may sound similar, if you're only looking at the fact that some MGTOW share some of the same opinions, otherwise it's in no way the same. And so what if some MGTOW do share the same opinions? Since when do people sharing a similar opinion constitute a cult anyway? Yes, MGTOW does have some core beliefs, some core principles, that define what it is to be MGTOW, but a word having a definition doesn't make it a cult. Defining a tomato as what a tomato is and saying something that is not a tomato doesn't make something a cult. Also, just as many MGTOW share similar beliefs because they're MGTOW, that doesn't mean they're cultists. Before you do anything else in regards to defining MGTOW, what it is, what it isn't, you have to ask how MGTOW men came to have their beliefs. Were their beliefs reached individually, or were MGTOW guys indoctrinated by some sort of non-existent group with no organization to it? MGTOW, you see, they come by their views through life experience, and in most cases, make the decision to go their own way from those experiences. Now, yes, some men do read MGTOW writings and opinions or watch MGTOW videos, and they go their own way sometimes based off of that information, at least to some extent. But so what? That doesn't make MGTOW a cult. It doesn't make it a cult any more than choosing to be a capitalist because you read some of Ayn Rand's work. Holding a belief that others believe doesn't make you a cultist, nor does being swayed by the arguments of others to change your view of things. And sharing your thoughts on what you believe Sharing those thoughts with others who think the same way on the subject as you do, that also doesn't make you a cultist. No, you need dogma, authority, organization, collectives who in the extreme tend to live together. You also need religious devotion to the point where only the dogma you believe in is true. But none of that's MGTOW, as the things we believe in are based off of evidence, not feelings. And we are not an organization, nor do we have any authority figures spouting dogma that lacks evidence or goes against established evidence. MGTOW is about men going their own way. There are a few things that define a man going his own way. Number 1, don't live with a woman. Number 2, don't marry a woman. Number 3, don't have kids with a woman, as this enables her to get a hold of your resources. Number 4, don't give her anything or put yourself in a position to have to give her anything. Basically, that one's a summation of the prior 3. This is what it means to be MGTOW. And if you don't fit this definition, then you're not MGTOW. That just as if you don't fit the definition as something doesn't fit the definition of a tomato, it's not a tomato. That's it. How's that a cult exactly? Ah, I see. Because some people interpret this definition as a set of teachings. Teachings that are somehow 100% correct always and must be accepted on faith, as if from some authority figure who always knows best. So that makes them dogma, right? Wrong. First off, every cult has an authority figure who knows best. Every single one. With religion, it's God and his supposed representatives on earth, such as the Pope in Rome, and to a lesser extent, his priests. With Scientology, it's L. Ron Hubbard and the current president, David Miscavige. With Jonestown, it was Jim Jones. With the Manson family, you had Charles Manson. Every cult that exists or has existed has an authority figure of some kind representing it and acting as the authority whose words are truth and whose words are all you need to know to inform you about reality. That said, where's MGTOW's Grand Poobah? Huh? Where's our authority? Where? I don't see it. Where is it? Where is he? Where's our leader? Oh, we don't have one. I see. But we're all still somehow a cult. MGTOW's still somehow a cult without an authority figure to lead us and tell us what we should believe. Essentially, we're a cult without an authority. Okay, I see. But one could then argue that truth is our authority, right? For example, the statistics about marriage and how it disenfranchises men, the facts about how the Duluth model make it risky to live with a woman as she can have you arrested, even if she is the one who attacked you. The always believe her narrative that allows any woman to claim rape and throw you in jail without evidence. But wait, those are facts, not lies, and they're certainly not dogma. There's evidence to back every single one of these things up. And are those facts not facts because they're objectively true and not because they're coming from an authority who says they're true? Yeah, they're true because they're true. They have evidence to back them up. They're not dogma. Hence, would not one of the necessary qualifiers for being a cult be that you follow dogma? This is given to you by an authority figure as truth simply because they are coming from an authority figure? Is that what MGTOW is doing? No, of course not. MGTOW has no authority figure telling us what is true and what isn't. We MGTOW rely on facts, evidence, and research, and we don't take any of it at face value. No, we tend to be skeptical by nature since we understand all too easily how easy it is to be fooled. We understand all too well how easy it is for us MGTOW guys, how it is for any guy, any person to be fooled. Hence, we make sure that anything new we learn is true before we believe it. Essentially, we believe in what has been proved to us by evidence, not by what some disinformation junkie authority figure tells us is true. There's no dogma in MGTOW. There's nothing that has simply been accepted as fact and hasn't been formulated based on real solid evidence. Because MGTOW is first and foremost nothing more than a definition for a guy who doesn't want to give away his power. That's it. Which brings me to my next point. MGTOW is nothing more than a moniker for bachelor, a somewhat newer term for newer times, for dealing with the newer women who are nothing like women were in the past. However, it's still nothing more than being a bachelor, something that women have never liked, as men who don't get married and stay single deprive them of a man's resources while at the same time generating confusion, misunderstanding, and envy in their fellow men who decided to take the blue pill. That's all MGTOW is. A slightly different moniker for the term of bachelor. That's it. We could simply call ourselves bachelors, but some of the reasons for becoming a bachelor have changed as the system and the culture have changed. Hence the need for a new term denoting the new reasons for why men are deciding to remain bachelors or become bachelors anew and go their own way was needed. And that's it. Is being a bachelor an organization? Is being a bachelor a group? Is being a bachelor a cult? And if you believe so, tell me why. There's no dogma. There's no acceptance of authority. There's no acceptance of authority-given teachings that are always true no matter what, so just accept them on faith. Nor is MGTOW an organization. MGTOW is in no way centralized, nor is it funded by anyone. In contrast, feminism has its authorities who spell out endless dogma that's eaten up and considered as truth by its followers, even though there's plenty of evidence to disprove these authorities' ramblings, such as the rape culture myth, the so-called wage gap myth, the patriarchy myth, the 1 in 4 women being sexually assaulted on campus myth, and the list just goes on and on. Dogma spread from an authoritarian centralized power base, which is well funded by billions of taxpayer dollars every year, as well as private donations. MGTOW, in contrast, has no such centralized power base, no authorities who are spouting dogma that's only considered true because said authorities speak it, but it can all be disproven with a closer look. We have no president of the MGTOW movement, no Bible, which contains our teachings, which are all true because someone who is in authority said they were true. We have no central headquarters, no branches in any major cities, or any cities for that matter. Show me MGTOW town. Show me where MGTOW live together in a group and worship the ideal of MGTOW. Can you show me? No, because no such places exist. MGTOW is not a group. It isn't even a loosely related group where guys who live in the same area sometimes get together and talk about issues that impact MGTOW men. Everything that makes a group, MGTOW is not. Hell, MGTOW at its core is all about individualism, which is the exact opposite of what a cult is, which is essentially an extreme collectivist organization. So, yet another thing ticked off the list of why MGTOW is a cult. Next would be ideology. Now, some have made the argument that MGTOW is a sort of cult because men who identify as MGTOW all share the same quote-unquote ideology. First off, this isn't even true, as going your own way isn't really an ideology or even a philosophy. It's nothing more than an objective and very accurate assessment of the legal system, a system that is set up to favor women in such a way that there's no benefit to a man to get married. That's 100% accurate and objective assessment of the situation, and is in no way based on dogma or ideology. Now, you could argue that many MGTOW hold some of the same beliefs about female nature and the nature of the world, and how to best live in that world as a MGTOW man, and that in turn is some kind of ideology. That's an argument you could make. However, we should first define our terms. What exactly is ideology? Okay, let's look at Merriam-Webster. Visionary theorizing. Number 2, a systematic body of concepts, especially about human life or culture, a manner or content of thinking characteristic of an individual, group, or culture. The integrated assertions, theories, and aims that constitute a socio-political program. Okay, so you could say that MGTOW men all follow a similar, if not the same, ideology, hence they're a cult, right? Wrong. First off, you need to take a look again at the definition of cult. So let's go definition by definition, shall we? Number 1, formal religious veneration, meaning worship. Nope, MGTOW men don't worship anything. We like evidence and facts, but we don't worship them, as that would simply be taking something on faith, which is anathema to using evidence to inform you about reality, instead of feelings and subjective notions of reality, which we don't do. Number 2, a system of religious beliefs and ritual. MGTOW isn't a religion, and there's no dogma involved. Nothing we accept is based on authority, but instead on objective reality. There's no ritual, no MGTOW churches or buildings, no MGTOW anything. Number 3, a religion regarded as unorthodox or spurious. Unorthodox to be a bachelor? Only because the state is so broke that it needs a man's resources as well as his debt to feed the debt machine. And you can't have a message of going your own way spreading among the society. But being a bachelor hasn't been considered unorthodox until very recently, as it's become more popular. So now it needs to be demonized. Number 4, a system for the cure of disease based on dogma set forth by its promulgator health cult. Yeah, this one doesn't apply unless the disease we're trying to cure is male unhappiness. If that's the case, then this definition could technically apply. If we were selling something or making claims based off of no evidence and or dogmatic teachings, which again would be based on no evidence and only the word of a so-called authority, like a god or a grand poobah leader. Nope, Not MGTOW. We just say to go your own way because of the dangers that exist in the system. Very real dangers, I might add, that can be proven as fact by looking at the evidence. Not dogma. Nothing unreasonable about that. Nothing dogmatic there at all. So nope, this one doesn't apply either. Number 5, great devotion to a person, idea, object, movement, or work. Okay, so this last one is the only definition that might be able to apply. So let's explore it, shall we? First off, there's no great definition to devotion to a person. Some MGTOW might be devoted to certain MGTOW content producers, but that doesn't make MGTOW a cult. That would at best qualify as a personality or celebrity cult of some kind, following of a particular person. That might be boiled down to a personality cult. That's not the same thing. Yes, some MGTOW content producers have a cult-like following to a point, but it isn't large and only seems cult-like on the surface. Seems is the key word. You see, people following someone closely is not a cult. They would have to accept every word that person said is true, regardless of whether or not evidence backed up that person's assertions, for that to even qualify as a personality cult. However, I can tell you as a content producer myself that if you get something wrong, people will call you out on it. Even your seemingly most devoted fans. That's not a cult, and the vast majority of MGTOW are like that. Individualistic to the core. Even if they like you, they will generally call you on your BS if you're spouting BS. Nope. There's no grand poobah spouting dogma here. Certainly not on some grand scale that would qualify MGTOW itself as a cult. No way. As for devotion to an idea, okay, this one could possibly apply if MGTOW was an idea. However, it's not. It's just going your own way. Just like a tomato is simply red or green, and it's a thing that grows on a vine that you occasionally eat on a BLT, or how an atheist is simply someone that doesn't believe in God for lack of evidence. No one's saying these things are just ideas that people are devoted to, hence they're a cult. No one is devoted to the definition of a tomato or atheism or MGTOW. I think people fail to understand what words really mean, so they conflate certain things and get easily confused because of how they have erroneously chosen to define things. Let's look at what an idea is, okay? A formulated thought or opinion. Okay, so are MGTOW devoted to a thought or opinion? What is devoted? What is devotion? Devotion is, number 1, religious fervor, piety, an act of prayer or private worship, a religious exercise or practice other than the regular worship of a congregation. The act of dedicating something to a cause, enterprise, or activity. The act of devoting, the devotion of a great deal of time and energy. The fact of state of being adherently dedicated and loyal, love, loyalty, or enthusiasm for a person or activity. All these definitions require a large amount of subjectivity and emotion and do not by themselves qualify something as a cult. And while many MGTOW guys still in the red pill rage are indeed angry and qualify as emotional in that sense, the majority are not devoted to MGTOW, as MGTOW isn't a thing. To be devoted to something, that thing has to exist in the first place. However, MGTOW is more akin to atheism than anything else. It's simply a lack of belief in something, in this case marriage, or any type of relationship that mirrors marriage. That's it. There's no dogma, there's no organization, there's no central headquarters, no set of MGTOW ideals or beliefs, there's no MGTOW Bible. No, there's nothing like that. And don't confuse the personal beliefs of individual MGTOW with some kind of worldwide, universally held set of beliefs. There's no such thing in MGTOW. Just as there's no such thing as a core set of ideals or teachings at the heart of being a bachelor or being an atheist. It's simply someone choosing not to become involved in something because they don't believe in it, based on evidence or lack thereof. In this case, not only is the evidence that marriage is good for man not there, but there's actually tons of evidence to say that it's very bad for man. Hence, I don't believe marriage is good for me. I don't believe marrying a woman is good for me, and I don't believe having kids with a woman is good for me, so I don't do it. Just as an atheist sees that there's no evidence for a God, so he doesn't believe in one, and in turn doesn't do things like go to a church, pray, or donate money to any religious organizations. Something that MGTOW most certainly is not. And to conflate things like atheism or MGTOW with cults is to lack a fundamental understanding of what either of them are, as well as an understanding of what words actually mean. Simply not doing something or not believing in something does not a cult make. If you don't understand that by now, you never will. Cults have leaders. Cults have authority figures. Cults have belief systems that are directly tied to the cult itself. They aren't simply beliefs held randomly by various members, but not by the whole. No, the beliefs of a cult will be pushed and forwarded by the cult leadership. as true and undeniable facts because it's coming from an authority, hence dogma. There will be a mass belief in all the same ideas among all the people in this cult. They'll believe all the same things with no disagreement, as disagreement isn't allowed. Everyone will be homogenous in their thinking. Does this sound anything like MGTOW to you? Which is a non-group with no belief system of its own, that isn't an organization, has no leaders, no dogma, and no authority, where everyone goes their own way, which is really the definition of an individual. You see, people tend to mistake the rantings and personal opinions of sub-MGTOW as representative of some type of group indoctrination, ideology, or set of teachings that represent or define MGTOW as a whole. But sometimes a cigar is just a cigar, people. Sometimes people's opinions are just that. Their opinions. They don't represent anyone else's views, only their own. MGTOW men are all affirmed bachelors. It stands to reason that affirmed bachelors, especially those who've had many of the same experiences with relationships and marriages, will tend to have similar views on these things. But that isn't because they were taught something from a MGTOW Bible. They weren't indoctrinated by some authority figure. MGTOW isn't a religion with offices and churches all over the world. We don't have headquarters with a president, vice president, and comptroller. We don't have rules, teachings, guidelines, meetups. We don't have billions in funding. We don't own real estate or have any political power. We don't have communal homes where monk-like men live together and bake bread and pray to the MGTOW God and in exchange get donations for their piety. Being a MGTOW man doesn't mean you have to be devoted to anything or adherent to any teachings that are MGTOW or dogma. There's no such dogma. Any teachings at all, for that matter. There's no teachings. MGTOW is no more a cult than atheism or non-Bigfoot believers. We have a belief or lack of belief depending on what can be proven, based on logic, reason, common sense, and most importantly, facts about objective reality, not beliefs based in dogmatic ramblings that come from some so-called authority, rantings that are true only because the authority said they were true, despite lack of evidence or evidence to the contrary. You see, cults are evil, as they encourage groupthink and an authoritarian-style approach to life. Their teachings are dogmatic, meaning coming from an authority, so they're always right. Hence, anyone that disagrees with them is always wrong, and that's it. End of discussion, no debate allowed. Now, while some MGTOW guys might sound like this, they're not indoctrinated cultists simply because they know their facts or have strong beliefs in something based on evidence. What's most important is they don't believe in dogma based on appeals to feelings or lessons passed on from authority figures with no evidence to support their claims. And they don't believe in a group dynamic, as you can see from the fact that there is no group in regards to MGTOW. And by the way, if you push a MGTOW guy to defend his beliefs with evidence, most can. That's very different from a collectivist approach to reality that's a cult-based system. And if you want to know what a cultist reality, what a cultist group really looks like, you need only look at the current left in America or your typical feminist spinning disinformation that's easily refuted. Of course, even when presented with facts, these feminists won't believe you, no matter your evidence. Why? Because the collective has agreed collectively that this is truth. Nothing else is true. So anything and everything else that's different is a lie. That's not MGTOW. So is MGTOW a cult? No, it isn't a cult for any number of reasons. Lack of centralization, no organization, no power base, no funding, no offices, no real-world buildings with administrators and presidents and authority figures setting an agenda, no teachings of any kind, no ideology of any kind. It's just a bunch of guys who've all reached what's a rather obvious conclusion for a man: that relationships and marriage are no longer worth the trouble due to how much the pendulum has swung in the opposite direction, meaning towards enfranchising women. That's just a recognition of reality, a reality where men are treated worse and worse every day by ideologues and real cult members who belong to groups that have teachings passed down from authority and dogma, groups that have leaders who push dogma and their own personal agendas, like college professors and gender studies professors who are really just teaching feminism, which is really just cultural Marxism. And you also have national feminist groups with presidents and full-time staff on salary. None of that's MGTOW. In the end, we're just a bunch of guys who get together online and bitch and moan about how bad things have gotten for men. a conclusion based on facts, not dogma, I might add, and who have decided that the best course of action is simply not to take an action, to stop believing in and participating in a system that we no longer believe in. And if some MGTOW men do posit certain positive beliefs instead of simply not believing in something, that wouldn't make them a cult either, as those beliefs would have to be coming from dogma. They would have to be dogma. That's a part of an organized movement that is centralized and homogenous with authority figures, members, and some form of power structure to qualify as a cult. Hence, in the end, any argument trying to portray MGTOW as a cult is specious and nothing more than people who don't know what the word cult means, or it's people who are purposely trying to portray being MGTOW as a bad thing so as to stop others from going their own way as well. I am the MGTOW philosopher, and I wish you a good day. Take care.